those people unfamiliar with my voice, my name is Peter.
The three things that you can do to increase your business are simple. Expect them to be simple. Don't expect to have your socks knocked off. The key is going to be, as many times, the basic stuff. Experts, even the people like pro football players, they go back to basic training every year. So I'm going to give you some basic and some simple stuff you're going to be able to do to make a big impact on your business. First, go to work. That's the first thing that you can do. You can increase your contact time. I'm sure anybody that ever sells memberships to gyms or memberships to health clubs have been somewhat frustrated with people that say,
"Oh yeah, I joined Bailey's, and it didn't help me at all."
And you'd say, "Oh really? Well, what was it about Bailey's?" Well, if you dig in a little bit and you find out the guy never showed up, how in the world can Bailey's Health Club actually help you if you never show up? So part of the time is going to be increasing your contact time. So if you increase your contact time, you'll be amazed what happens. And sometimes that's just a self-discipline issue. Sometimes people say, well, it's a numbers game. And in several of my sales careers, we used to use the numbers 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 was the national closing ratio. If you did a proper presentation, across the board, we seem to close 1 out of every 3 presentations that we did fully. So it might be 1 out of 3, might be 1 out of 5, might be 1 out of 7, I don't know. I guess it depends on the nature of the people you start with and the kind of leads you're working with, etc. That means that if you close 1 out of 6, if you actually close, meaning somebody's going to buy your product and or join your deal, and I'll use deal as slang, and the numbers are going to be 1 out of 6, I want you to think for a second, what do the other 5 sound like? And this is what I mean by people understanding the numbers game. What kind of conversations did you have with those 5 that did not work out? And how you manage that in your own head is really going to make a big difference. Maybe 1 out of those 5s are a forever maybe. Somebody who can't say yes and they can't say no, so you deal with the forever maybe. Maybe some of them could be polite no's. Some people might say, just didn't tell me the truth of the way it was, or maybe they had a hidden agenda. Maybe you get a couple of those. Well, when you're going through those, if your numbers are 1 out of 6, then understanding really how this thing is a numbers game is how you react when you talk to or hang up with a forever maybe. That's really what I mean by understanding the numbers game. What happens inside your head is the things that you have to control in reference to going to work, increasing your contact time, handling this shell that sometimes you put on yourself as you're working your business. So that's more or less, managing the head game sometimes that happens. Here's another biggie. You're going to have to learn how to ask for decisions more. One of the single biggest challenges that we have in our industry, especially in network marketing, sales in general, network marketing specifically, is people talk too much. So I'll throw in that word talk. They confuse conversation with getting something done. If I were to ask you when you're done with your presentation, how many times did you really ask him or her to join? Or how many times did you really ask him or her to buy? And you'd say, well, I talked a lot. I was on the phone for 20 minutes. I brought them to the website. We had a nice dialogue. They thought everything was really cool. And I'd say, but again, how many times did you really ask them to join? Or how many times did you really ask them to buy? And most times, again, when you look at it, it's only 1 or 2. That right there by itself could make a huge difference whether someone's going to join your business or not. Someone might ask you a question. Well, can I do this part-time? If I said to that person, if I showed you, you could, would you want to? And then I'd just be quiet. The typical tendency for many of us is just to keep talking, or maybe even to answer the question for that person, or maybe say some things that make people feel good, or maybe confide them, or maybe we get a little bit nervous. So when someone would ask me something like, can I do this part-time, I would simply use, if I could show you you could, would you want to join? Or a different action step. If I could show you you could, would you want to learn more? Right? Because if someone asked that question, can I do this part-time? And you said, if I showed you you could, would you want to join? What's the worst thing that he says? No, not really, because I don't know what I'll be doing. It pulls them more into the conversation when you ask them more times to make a decision. So making decisions or helping people make decisions is different from just gathering information. So don't confuse it with how long you've been looking, what kind of work do you do, how many kids do you have, all that sort of stuff. That might be important information, but it's not helping people to make a decision. Okay, the last one. This one probably can help propel your business like crazy, and that is using the leverage that starts to happen when you work with someone else. If you worked as if the first $5,000 in your business is almost impossible, and it was almost going to kill you, if you worked with that in mind, like this is almost impossible to work, as long as you don't quit, you'd figure it out, and then everything else after that would be like a piece of cake. If you worked as if, and it's never that bad, so I always like to throw that little doom thing in there so you can say to yourself, okay, then I won't quit. As long as you're telling me the truth, okay, I won't quit. Meaning like it gets better as you go through. Then what you want to do is you want to put yourself into a leadership position. The way you develop yourself into a leadership position is you got to find a running buddy and you have to work with somebody. So the key is going to be work with somebody. There's huge leverage that happens when you work with somebody else. So the key is going to be here, find someone to work with and never work alone. When you start working with other people, it's amazing the leverage that starts to happen. Try to do the best demo I possibly can because the new guy is watching. I didn't worry about judgment or comments. I didn't worry about, like, if someone hung up on me, I didn't have to explain that away to anybody. I just said, listen, this is going to happen. If you can find that special person to work with, so even in the worst case situations, you both say, whoops, let's go make another one. The fact that you start to work with someone else is going to be a big difference to give you the leverage that you need. I want to just kind of go back here and kind of recap. If somebody that was working with me was struggling a little bit or a lot, I would go back and take a look at their work ethics, their contact time. I would make sure that they're actually going out there and doing something. Then I would work on their head to make sure that they weren't getting beaten up by the rejection that sometimes people face when things aren't going very well. Second thing we do is we get them to help ask people more questions to help them make decisions. You can do a presentation, but if you do a presentation without asking people how to make decisions, I'll share with you, you're just not going to get as many people as you possibly should. And then the next thing, if you're looking for duplication in your business and you find the right people, hook them up. If you have people that you hook up with working together, and then you say, okay, guys, make sure no prejudgment, no comments, don't worry about messing, no high drama, no kibitzing, no gossiping, just stay on track and just go to work, you'll be amazed to see what happens. Because when I always worked with someone else, it kind of forced me to do more of the right things long enough consistently. Okay, so anybody that goes out there and applies those three things, you'll be amazed at what starts to happen in your business.